The next locomotive on display is a Hornby Railroad Gadwall. It's an A4 Pacific. It's in the TTS range, and I got this 5 or 6 years ago now for about £70 from Hatton's. It was really good value at the time. I can't quite understand how they could do such good value at the time with the TTS fitted, so about £70. Probably cost about double that now. It runs beautifully, and I quite like the sounds that they make on TTS, so I'm not going to complain about that. And on the outer track in a little while we'll have Cock of the North, which I bought as a railroad model again probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Again about £70 from Hatton's. This one did not have TTS sound, but I've since fitted it with the sound. Gadwall is hauling a rake of Hornby Gresley coaches in the lovely teak livery, the super detailed range. The coaches are fantastic, I must admit, but a bit pricey. So on the outer loop we've got Cock of the North, Hornby P2 railroad version. Like I said, only about £70. I reckon this is probably the best value locomotive Hornby have ever done, to be honest. It's certainly one of the biggest. It is not super detailed in that the livery is a bit simplified and there are no separately fitted handrails around the cab and on the tender. But really, for what you pay, you're getting a hell of a lot of locomotive. And when Hornby released it, I remember seeing a video of it on I think it might have been Tony Wright's layout, where he basically puts as many coaches on it as possible, and I think it's probably about the most powerful, or one of the most powerful ready to run locomotives, steam engines anyway, in recent years. So I have attached a big rake of kit-built Ian Kirk coaches behind Cock of the North. I reckon, I'll double check, I'll just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 9 coaches on there, 3 of which are a triplet restaurant set, which in itself create quite a lot of drag. Overall, this is quite a heavy train, and certainly the heaviest train I would run on this layout. So let's see how Cock of the North gets on. When I first got Cock of the North, it was a very smooth runner once it got going, but it started off slightly jerkily. And I put that down to the fact that it had a 3-pole motor. So I replaced the 3-pole motor, which had a flywheel, with a 5-pole motor, following instructions from a video on YouTube. And the 5-pole motor, including the gear, a worm gear, was a direct fit, direct replacement. So it proved to be a very good swap. Once it was bedded in and run in, the locomotive started very, very smoothly. It had run smoothly before, thanks to the flywheel, but it didn't start quite so smoothly, and I put that down, as I said, to the 3-pole motor. So I've now got a superb running Cock of the North. I fitted TTS sound to it. I didn't worry about any pickups in the tender because the locomotive has pickups on all the driving wheels anyway. Now the rake of coaches are all, as I said, Ian Kirk kit-built coaches, about half of which I made myself, half are ready-made for me. And I love the Ian Kirk kits. Not everyone likes them. They're not painted to the same standard as the Hornby coaches you can see in the picture now. But in reality, I think Gresley coaches probably didn't look quite so pristine as the Hornby models. The Hornby models look like what you would see in a modern museum, whereas the Ian Kirk models, as they've been painted by me, look more like what a teak coach might look like actually on the working railway. Slightly darker colour for some of them as well, and varying shades of teak, because depending on how old the coach was, it might have weathered more or less. So the next model on display is the Hornby W1, the Hush Hush, and in contrast to Cock of the North, which cost only about £70, this is the most expensive locomotive I've ever bought. It was not a great success for Hornby when it first came out because the locomotives were so poorly packaged by the distributor that loads of them were broken, and there were also quite a few little quality control niggles. Fortunately mine had none. Yeah, the one problem I found is the footsteps just behind the cylinders and around the valve gear area. Considering it's a 00 gauge model, which means the wheels are actually too close together compared to the prototype, it's surprising how wide those footsteps are, and if you just use Hornby platform parts and Hornby track plans, you probably won't have a problem with those footsteps hitting things. But with my platforms, which I've designed to be a little bit closer to the coaches so that passengers can actually get on and off without having to, set a long jump record, it catches on the on the outer platforms. So I'm running it on the inner track at the moment. If I want to run it on the outer track, I'm going to have to do something about those steps. I could probably file them down a bit if the plastic isn't too hard. I've heard of one or two people who've just cut them off completely, which seems a bit drastic. But that design fault that Hornby really should have done something about is the only flaw in my model. Otherwise, it's a super runner. And let's see it carry on again. The Hornby Pullman coaches behind it are a bit squeaky, unfortunately, or at least one of them is. Probably something to do with the pickups, because they're the ones with the internal lighting. And next up, on the outer track, coming in from the branch line, we have a Thompson L1. Okay, again, it's in British Railways livery, but it's an apple green livery pulling some Thompson teak coaches. Now, these Thompson teak coaches that the L1 is pulling are beautiful, but as with the Gresley panelled coaches, I wonder how realistic the sort of lettering is and the lining is, or the teak colour. It looks beautiful, but is it a little bit too pristine? I don't know. Okay, so I'll set the L1 going again and you'll be able to see the coaches in a bit more detail. Now, my L1 is a very nice runner, but I did have to fix a few issues with it originally. Yeah, the pickups on the rear bogie were a bit unreliable. Only about 2 out of the 4 of them were picking up electricity, so I had to tinker with those a bit. The front pony truck also kept derailing, and I had to add quite a bit of extra weight to it, and I also altered the way in which I'd attached it to the chassis, which you can see in a separate video. Let me just move the composite coach into shot, and you'll see the beautiful teak livery. Can't really fault the way Hornby have applied that. All I would say though is that perhaps it's a little bit too beautiful, and certainly suburban coaches like this would never have been that beautiful in real life. This one looks like it's been preserved in a museum. Nothing wrong with that, but certainly a bit too beautiful for everyday use on a suburban branch line.